stop talking. And if not, maybe find somebody place else to talk. That's
all right, session started.
yeah. Hi. Yeah. Okay, Salman has already criticized my slides because they're very boring. But they're mostly to remind me of what I'm supposed to be talking about at any given moment. We're not using that recording, I'm recording it myself.
This is awful. Boring is good.
Messing up. Yeah, that's what I'm going for. Also, because my main audience is nonprofit organizations, they're always out of money, so they can't afford fancy graphics and things. So what I'm going to talk about is using CiviCRM to simplify your nonprofit toolset. Although I've been using Drupal and CiviCRM for about 15 or so years with various nonprofits as well as labor organizations to manage their bulk mailing and event planning. And I use it myself for almost any place where I need to manage a bunch of contacts. So it's not just for nonprofits, but it's built with nonprofits in mind. Okay, and now I'm just having some technical difficulties with the recording device. So I'm doing my own recording. Oh, there I am in the corner. Okay. That's unexpected. Okay. Okay, it's going. Okay. So, welcome to Drupal Camp. It's super great to be back with people in person. We haven't done one of these since 2019 because of, the thing. So we're super happy to be back. I've been with Drupal Camp Ottawa and the Ottawa Drupal Association since its founding several years ago. We're really happy to have our sponsors that have allowed us to have this space free to participants. So those are Coldfront, OpenPlus, Evolving Web, Enterprise 7 Pro, and Opticy, and I'm sure you'll see them around all day. There are going to be session recordings because my laptop apparently doesn't like the red button. I'm recording this myself, so I will have it with the rest of the camp recordings afterwards. So, what is CiviCRM? It is an open source constituency relationship management system, which, if you're thinking about those things, you probably recognize Salesforce and others, but CiviCRM has been built from the ground up by nonprofits for nonprofits. So it does not have sales in mind, that you're trying to adapt to a nonprofit situation. It's built with the things that nonprofits need to do. And because it's open source, when we say who makes it, it's the CiviCRM community, which is smaller than the Drupal community, but equally welcoming and helpful. And I'm Kath C on both of those places. So, yeah. Okay, so CiviCRM on Drupal is my preferred way of using it. If you go to Drupal.org and look for CiviCRM module, it's not currently a module that's hosted on Drupal.org, but it does have a project page there that gives you information about the project and links you to where you can find it. So CiviCRM, as I said in tiny print at the bottom, it can also be installed on WordPress, Joomla, Backdrop, and Some people have developed it as a standalone web app, so you don't need it attached to any site. But I prefer to do it with Drupal because by installing CiviCRM in Drupal, you get all the power of Drupal's security, the login system, all of that kind of stuff. So CiviCRM's handling your contact and relationships management, and Drupal's handling your front end and your security and permissions. Once you install CiviCRM on Drupal and you go to the roles and permissions page, you'll notice that it's, I printed it once and it's like 30 some pages long because the permissions are so granular in Drupal to allow you to have each person accessing the CiviCRM backend only see exactly what their responsibility is in CiviCRM. So your fundraising people see all of the fundraising information, your finance people see all of the banking and tax receipts information, your event planners see all the registration stuff, and they don't, like only the administrators, like in Drupal, only people you've given administrator rights to get the whole, mess of menus and things. My next slide, I said, is it still ugly? Because that's often a complaint about CiviCRM, that other CRMs that you look at that are commercial are much prettier. I don't find it ugly. I find it a little plain, but there's been a lot of work in the last couple of years on making CiviCRM screens more attractive and allowing you to use different themes and override some of the graphical stuff while still seeing all of the important data. And also, again, with Drupal, if the public is going to be interacting with your CiviCRM, you can use extensions to web forms. There's an awesome web form and CiviCRM integration so that your front end is a Drupal web form and it fills data directly into your CiviCRM. And then there's a module called CiviCRM Entity that hooks CiviCRM database into your views. So all of your CiviCRM data is available through Drupal views. So actually I was going to, see if this works. So on a site I built like this week, I've got, like you can see, this is a Drupal site with very little done to it. It's using the Olivero theme. It's Drupal 10.3, I think, whatever was current on Monday. This page is a web form that fills in a bunch of information for a nonprofit called Senior Women Living Together. And so you answer all the questions and then hit submit, and your data goes straight into your CiviCRM database. And then for logged in members, they can go to this profile search screen and filter using views, extended filters, to search through that database. And currently, again, it's a site that was built on Monday, so it does not have a lot of fancy stuff, but it does show the records that meet your filters. So, and you can build those filters to be as complicated or as simple as you want, just using views. So you don't need to know anything about CiviCRM except how your fields are structured. Okay, so, So I'm just going to do a quick run through the different components because one of the reasons for doing CiviCRM is if you're in a small organization and you're using Drupal for your website and Eventbrite for your event registrations and Constant Contact for your email lists and whatever platform for doing volunteer management and something else for your fundraising, so Blackbaud or whatever else to do your fundraising. Those are all built-in core components in CiviCRM. So you have one place where you log in with your Drupal login and have all of those services available to the people who need them instead of having to have, 5 or 6 different service logins. So the first one that people usually want is, well, the first one depends on the organization. If the first thing you're doing after you install CiviCRM is holding an event, that will be the first thing you do with it. But most people want an email system. So in CiviCRM, you've got emails hooked into it throughout. So you can use its email system to do individual emails to people. You can use it for, if you're using it as your fundraising platform, you can use it to send out your receipts and acknowledgments of donations and all of those kind of transactional messages. But it also has a really nice bulk emailing system. It uses an extension called Mosaico, which is another open source project actually that's an email template builder. So you plug Mosaico into your CiviCRM using a CiviCRM extension, and you have the power of that to do really nice, responsive HTML, beautiful emails right in CiviCRM. And because it's all open source, there's no additional licensing fee for any of that. Or for the number of contacts you have in your database, so you don't run into a limit in terms of email use. You just have to be concerned about it when at the hosting level. So you need to make sure your hosting either includes email or you have an alternate, a lot of people use AWS SES. It's a very inexpensive SMTP service. If you're opposed to AWS, there are other SMTP services that you can use. And if you're not sure which one to use, the CiviCRM community folks will help you. And I'll talk about that later. The other nice thing about CiviCRM is that in the community, because it's made up of largely nonprofit people, they're very aware of what the current legal requirements are, and the community is really heavily in Europe, so CiviCRM got all the GDPR stuff built in a lot sooner than commercial suppliers of these types of systems. And so like they immediately last year when I think it was Google and Yahoo insisted that you have to have a one-click unsubscribe in any bulk email or they'll block you. So there's a CiviCRM extension for that that's now in the core mail system. So you can just turn that on. Okay, the other thing, I really enjoy using CiviCRM for event planning. And while I'm a volunteer with the organization, I didn't get in time to use it for today, but next time it'll be different. So you can do multiple types of events. If if you're in a nonprofit and you're going, okay, we're going to have this invitation-only roundtable about blah, 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 you can go search in your CRM and find the people that you want and invite them to the event. And then they're coming back to a registration page, to RSVP, and fill out a web form with their dietary requirements, and all of that kind of stuff. All of that's going straight into your CRM, so you can spit out reports later. It also does online registration, and you can hook it into any of the common payment processors to do paid events, or you can have free events that are just sending emails back and forth to saying, hey, you've registered, here's your, in the case of larger events, you can plug in an extension that does QR codes. I did a whole session on that at the last CiviCamp. But so when you get to the registration desk, your volunteers just have to have a cell phone and be logged into the website, and then their cell phone becomes your check-in system. So they can use their camera to point at a QR code, and it's marking you as attended in CiviCRM, as well as giving you details about what your ticket is, what room you're supposed to be going to, what table you're sitting at, all of that kind of stuff. The event system also has a function to print name badges, attendee lists, and do all that other reporting. And if you are doing a paid event, there's an extension called CiviDiscount that lets you do discounts based on date or role or anything else that you can search on. It can make a rule to give you a discount. For all of that stuff. And again, it's just an extension that you plug into your CiviCRM. So that's events. Okay. What a lot of people want to use CiviCRM for is tracking contributions. So that can be donations, product sales, event fees, all of those kind of things. So again, you use an extension to plug in your payment processor, and then nobody internally doing event planning has to have access to either your payment processor information or your bank account to see what's going on. That can be all handled by your finance people and the general public. And again, this can all show up on a web form, so nobody in the public will ever see CiviCRM. It's all in a web form. That's something I didn't mention before, actually. In several organizations that I've worked with, most recently at Action Canada for Sexual Health and Rights, our website was pretty complicated, so we didn't want to add CiviCRM onto that because we had a lot of very sensitive information in our CiviCRM. So we would do all of that stuff with web forms, and then web forms has a share your web form click. So technically all you have to do in Drupal is install the theme for any site that the web form will appear on, and then in web forms you can just say, share this web form, use this theme, and then the web form will display on the other site in a node. Like then on the other site, you just create a web form node, add the web form to it, and all of your data is going directly into your CiviCRM, but that site knows nothing about it. So other than it's hosting the web form. Anyway, so it's just a cool thing, and it has nothing to do with CiviCRM really, it's just the power of web forms. I also love web forms. So we have an extension called Canadian Tax Receipts that even if you're not in Canada, it can be modified to do receipts for any country we've tried it with. Just in the configuration, you may have to add different fields or create a different layout for your tax receipt to be a valid charitable receipt. So if you're paying somebody a lot of money to process your tax receipts annually or monthly or whatever, CiviCRM does that also for free. Then another core component is memberships. So if you're working with a membership organization, You can create different types of memberships that are a rolling subscription or an annual renewal or any kind of membership structure that you can think of can be configured to be managed in CiviCRM, and it just adds an activity of membership to that contact record and then spits out nice reports of how many subscribers you have right now. This is a boring report because, again, built this site this week, haven't imported the data yet. So that's my job on the weekend. But if you've got different types of memberships, then you get totals, and they will show your monthly, your last month, and your year-to-date membership statistics. And if you have money attached to those, then it will also show you your overall contribution rates for membership fees. Okay, the other components that are not as popular, or, well, at least I'm not using them right now, but I have in the past, are CiviVolunteer, which obviously adds information about your volunteers and shift scheduling and all of that kind of stuff to CiviCRM. CiviCase, which does case management. So if you're in an organization where you've got ongoing series of activities with, like between your staff and your end users or volunteers or whatever, you can use CiviCase. In a recent instance of that, we chose at Action Canada to replace the CiviCase core component with Drupal web forms and views, because that was just more flexible for our use case there. And then CiviGrant is for grant making. So if you're a foundation that gives money out to other people, you can use CiviGrant to track your grant applications. Okay, there used to be another complaint about CiviCRM was that the component called CiviReport was just really difficult to customize. Like, it had hundreds of built-in reports that you could just run at the touch of a button, but if you needed to add another field, it took a lot of development work. Well, not a lot. It took a good Twig developer to go in and modify those reports. So it wasn't something that a site builder or end user could do. So there's a new component called Search Kit that basically can replace all of the other search options with a really easy to use search screen that lets you build really complicated cross-table searches and then spits out reports. So, and it can join people to groups and, do all kinds of other great stuff. Okay. Anything that's not in the things that I already discussed that you want to do, probably somebody else has wanted to do it in some other nonprofit over the last 20 years. So we have a large library of extensions. So they add on, for instance, the payment processors are an extension because it'll depend what country you're in and where, what bank you use, which payment processor you're going to use. So those are all done as extensions. For additional services or for additional features, you just plug in an extension. The extension directory is on a page within your site. So you just go to the system settings extension page, and then you'll see all of the extensions that are valid for your particular installation. So if you're on Drupal 10, it will only show you extensions that are common across CiviCRM or the ones that are written for Drupal 10. Outside of the extension directory, there are also the things I mentioned before, the web form integration and the views integration are Drupal modules. So rather than living on the CiviCRM Git, they live in Drupal.org. Yeah, one peculiarity, if you're a Drupal person, is that themes are extensions. So, and if you're installing a theme in CiviCRM, it's only going to affect your CiviCRM screens, not like it has nothing to do with your Drupal theme. Okay, there's tons of help. There's really good documentation on CiviCRM.org. There are 3 books they're online, constantly updated books for developers, administrators, and users, so that each type of, like if you're a site builder, you're probably going to use more the administrator and user guides, but there's also a developer guide. The CiviCRM, it doesn't have an association. It's got this other, like there's a CiviCRM.org community council and the core team that are the main kind of drivers of the CiviCRM infrastructure. And they've been doing a lot of developer training and user training for administrators at Civi camps, both in Europe and North America. So we had one in Montreal a few months ago, sadly in February. So not the best time to be anywhere up here. There's also Mattermost. So if you're used to Slack, Mattermost is like an open source version of Slack. So there's a Mattermost called chat.civicrm.org, and it's got all kinds of channels about all the different CiviCRM discussions, and there's also civicrm.stackexchange.com that works like all Stack Exchanges. So if you have a specific question, you go in there and you search for it. If nobody else has asked and answered it, you ask the question and then people answer it. One of the resources I really, really like lately is a member of the CiviCRM community named Alan Shaw from a company named Joinery HQ in Texas, does a daily email. So every day you get an email in your mailbox, and it's somehow related to CiviCRM, but it's not often a technical thing about CiviCRM. It's more about, you know, being a human in the CiviCRM community and how to think about your data and that kind of stuff. So, and there's an archive at joineryhq.com/daily. Okay, if you don't want to host your own CiviCRM, if you want to have it all managed and maintained for you, the CiviCRM core team has a hosted option called CiviCRM Spark. It's got some limitations in the numbers of contacts you can host, and they've limited the number of extensions and themes and like other customizations that you can do there. But if you're just getting started, it's a great way at a very low cost to kind of jump in, start using it for the things you need today, and then because it's open source and it's just a database and it's hosted on Drupal, if you decide that you need to expand out of that, you just find your own hosting and you migrate to your own hosting. There's another organization called CiviCOop that's in England and does a lot of work in Europe, but also in North America. Is called, they have a solution called Civi Plus that adds all kinds of prettiness and extra reporting and good support and maintenance. And there's, if you want, as a site builder, to do your own configuration and all that kind of stuff, there's a group called Civi Hosting that just has hosting services. So they'll install your CiviCRM for you, and again, very low cost. And then you can go in and do all of your own thing and handle it just at, like you can get an SSH access, so if you want to jump in and do your own Drupal updates and stuff like that, you can, or they've got low cost maintenance and support. And in Canada, one of my favorite CiviCRM hosting partners is called Blackfly Solutions. So they store all of your data in Canada, and again, you can be as involved or not in all of the server stuff. And then for self-hosting, any host that can handle modern Drupal, so Drupal 10 or 11 now, can host your CiviCRM, because the site requirements, other than disk size, if you've got a massive database, it's going to take more space. But other than that, the requirements are the same as Drupal. Except the only other complication with self-hosting is that you have to configure your own SMTP. So if you're doing a mail-heavy installation, you have to have some place for that mail to go. So I'm at questions. So does anybody have anything else to add? Yes, Martin?
We have sort of like a multi-tenant architecture, so like imagine like a global organization that has like national chapters.
Yes. Yeah. There's you can configure it as multiple databases, or just one database using like on top of the Drupal permissions of the 30 pages and huge granularity. You can also, within your CiviCRM, set up like chapters or regions or whatever, and then filter, have regional, they call them just CiviCRM ACLs. So again, it would take a little more technical knowledge to go in and configure that, but yeah, it's some very large nonprofits are big sponsors of CiviCRM, because basically, you know, they built what they needed. So again, it comes back to, you know, if you need it and you're a small nonprofit, then somebody else probably also needed it and wrote an extension for it. Or one thing I like about CiviCRM is it's a similar development community to the Drupal community, in that you know, everybody writes the modules they need, right? But it's also for things that are of wider interest. They'll do what they call a Make It Happen campaign. So they'll have, like, so if I'm working at a nonprofit and I needed to hook into, what was it called, the database, Open North's political database API. So we wanted to have a way to do petitions based on your postal code. So when you log in, or without logging in, when you go to sign the petition, you put in your postal code, and it finds your MP or your MPP or the candidates in your riding or whatever it is that petition's configured for, and it queries the list of all of those politicians by postal code and sends the emails to the right people. So that kind of thing was of, like, it was only really of interest to organizations in Canada that were doing political lobbying. So instead of each of us contracting or writing those connectors to the database, we just all got together and, like, you know, 10 small organizations chucked in $1,000 and got it done, instead of waiting for somebody larger to come along and, you know, blow off a whole grant on that one feature. And then it's all an extension that anybody can use.
I'm not quite clear the integration between CiviCRM and Drupal. Like, CiviCRM is a different CRM. It's
yes.
not built in Drupal.
It's if you think of it as a module, so
But it's
like
not a Drupal module.
it installs as a Drupal module. It's not, the module right now is not hosted on Drupal.org, so we're not, like, they're working on security coverage and a recipe, like some of the Drupal developers in the community are working on making it a recipe to make it even easier. And like now it's not complex to install. You have to go to SSH and paste in a couple of command lines.
Okay, so if you were a Drupal module developer
Yeah.
and you dropped into one of your modules, would you be familiar with this?
I'm not a developer. I'm kind of odd in the Drupal community in that I've been around forever, but I've never followed the path that everyone expects, that you'll start as a site builder and eventually become a developer. I don't like writing code, so I've just kept being a site builder forever. But there's an active, like it's Composer installable. It's hosted in its own place because they're writing, like the core of CiviCRM can work on Drupal or WordPress or Backdrop or Joomla. So they're all, like they all have some similarities in architecture, but they all have different APIs and hook systems and all of that kind of stuff. Those are just words I've learned from listening to Martin a lot. It's a different project, like it's its own open source project. So there is a module that's written to integrate it with Drupal, and it lives in your Drupal hosting, and the database can, but doesn't have to be in the same database as your Drupal content. Like the back end is flexible enough that you can, and it's generally expected that if you've got a reasonably large Drupal site, you would install CiviCRM in a separate database. But yeah, it's not just a Drupal module. So it's kind of like an integration. Like if you've got Drupal, you can probably integrate Salesforce into Drupal somehow, right? Like there's API links. So this is more integrated than that. Like you're not just linking out to a different system. It is like hosted on your hosting and living in your database. I'm not sure if that really answered that question. Yeah.
Devil's in the details.
Yeah.
You're just thinking to say like there's some,
Yeah.
some compelling stuff here, but I'm not sure how well it would fit. Like we were trying to put like apples and oranges together.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing it for 15 years, and it, yeah, it just
I'd like to
works.
see a demo.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have, okay, so this is a Drupal site, and it's got CiviCRM in the back end. My only problem with this is I'm using the Gin admin theme, which I love, but it does not have any way to show you CiviCRM. So I'm not sure what time. Okay, I got a couple more minutes. We're going for lunch after this, and we're just going out for lunch. So I was supposed to say, come back for one after you're done here. So this is the CiviCRM home screen. So it's boring. It gives you another menu up here. So you can go into your members and memberships and mailings and events and contributions and see dashboards. And yes, this is the empty site. It's like it's just more screens and another menu within your Drupal site. You don't have another thing that's installed. And CiviCRM doesn't have a login system unless you're using, there's a relatively new CiviCRM standalone, which I haven't used at all because, like I said, I always do it with Drupal. So that has its own login system, but you're using, for this, you're using Drupal's login. And so the only thing that Drupal is saving in the Drupal database about your users is their login information. So their email, their name, username, and their password. That's what the Drupal user record is saving. And then it links to your CiviCRM records. So actually, if I go
I
to
just looked, there's a commerce CiviCRM module too, integrate.
I haven't used that yet. I want to.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to look for my record.
So that's
Okay.
kind of a good example.
Yeah, so you can tell, like on this record, it's got a contact ID, which is the CiviCRM user ID, and then it's got user ID, so that one is my Drupal login, like I'm user number 1 on this site. So that just brings me back to here. And then if I'd set this up to go into my profiles later on, I could just click on a link here and it would take me to my CiviCRM profile, so which is here. So this holds all of the other information. So this is all built into CiviCRM stuff up at the top, and then this is my custom fields down here. And this looks the same, like if you're running CiviCRM on WordPress for some reason, the CiviCRM stuff looks the same regardless of which platform you're installing it on. Okay, and I'm happy to talk about CiviCRM for hours and hours and hours and answer questions. So if you look for CathC on either Drupal.org or CiviCRM.org, that's where I am. Yeah.
Here. So, is there some comparisons between like Salesforce, like Dynamics, CRM, or those? Enterprise ones?
Those are expensive, and I know a place I worked at many years ago. As soon as I left, they converted from CiviCRM to Dynamics, and it cost them about $50,000 to build the same thing in Dynamics to be able to send out emails, and took them about 6 months after I left before they could send emails again. So, and I mean, Civi is not, it's not hard to administer. So, like, it's reading, right? Yeah.